All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Iman, and I'm a third year computer science student at Simon's Rock, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion today. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, including our panelists, fellow students from Simon's Rock, and friends from the Bard High School Early Colleges and Bard College. I started a Women in Tech Club at Simon's Rock during my freshman year after noticing a large gender disparity in many of my computer science classes. I wanted to create an inclusive space for female and non-binary students to come together and code and brainstorm and create. Since its start, Women in Tech has hosted numerous workshops at Simon's Rock, and we've attended various local undergraduate events. I will now introduce our three panelists for today, all of whom are women in technology coming from varying backgrounds and working in different areas. Shailaja Rao is the Director of Operations at Crystal IS, a subsidiary of Asahi Kasei, the company which won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2019. Shailaja has her PhD in electrical engineering from University of South Florida and has worked in multiple roles at Crystal IS, from materials science to process engineering management. Our second panelist, Amy Miller, is the Director of Product Engineering at Crystal IS, where she is responsible for introducing new products and developing and implementing scalable business processes. Amy also leads product characterization and biological studies on the company's products and applications. Previously at Crystal IS, Amy was a quality manager and played an integral role in implementing the company's ISO 9001 certified quality management system. Prior to joining Crystal IS, Amy was a member of the technical staff at Global Foundries and has held multiple positions in quality engineering and product management. Amy earned an MBA from the University of Maryland and a master's degree in manufacturing engineering from Boston University, where she also completed her undergraduate education. Our third panelist, Kelly Ann McGuire, is the outreach librarian at the Alumni Library at Bard College at Simon's Rock. She has worked, volunteered, and taught in academic, public, and high school libraries in New York and Massachusetts, and much of her career has been spent helping wary users become comfortable with technology. Thank you to all our panelists for being here today. The format of today's panel will be a list of questions for our panelists, and then at the end, we can open up Q&A with our attendees. If you have any questions that you would like the panelists to answer during Q&A, feel free to drop it using the Q&A function. So the first question for our panelists is, what is your background and how did you get to where you are today? Shailaja, do you want to start? And then we can do Shailaja, Amy, Kelly, Ann in that order.
Sure. My background is mostly material science. I started off with electrical engineering, and then I got interested in solar. After I got interested in solar, I tried to venture into that field, but then I realized that I'm mostly interested in materials because of the limitations of the solar in itself. At the point that I was undertaking it, I realized that at that point the material that we were working on was not so efficient. So that's why, in order to make more impactful impact to the renewable energy, more for the power consumption, I ventured into a material called silicon carbide, and I got more and more interested in that. And that's how I ended up today where I am, because silicon carbide is a compound semiconductor, and that's my PhD. That's where I did. My topic was that. It's how to make high power devices on silicon carbide. And then after that, I went into a startup company, and which unfortunately did not survive. So then I came to Crystal IS, where I was involved in growing aluminum nitride, which is also a compound semiconductor, and it's a wide bandgap. And the product that we make, as I think Iman a little bit talked about it, that we do ultraviolet LED light emitting diodes, I think Amy can talk better about that than I can. So that's my background, and that's what I am today doing with where I started off. Well, and I'll say one thing, that it's not like it now I can tell a story as if it all is what planned for, but totally it did not happen that way. But it's this is how I at least now connect the dots and say this is where I was meant to be. Okay.
So I would say I too took a torturous path. I started out in mechanical engineering at BU, and my first job was at Teradyne in Boston, which is they make automated test equipment for the semiconductor industry. And I was a component engineer, so I was responsible for sourcing components and supplier quality. I did a lot of supplier audits and things like that. So I really enjoyed that electronics manufacturing and the quality role. But then I got married, and my husband had a job in Maryland. So I quit my job and I went back to school. I thought it was a good time to get my MBA. So I went back and got an MBA at University of Maryland. When I came out with my master's, I got a job as a product manager for a software startup. So that was sort of a different path completely. So I worked there for several years, and then I got laid off during a reduction in force during the recession. So that was pretty tough. I was out of a job for a while, and then I got a job at a printed circuit board shop as a quality engineer. So that wasn't the best job in the world, but I learned a lot, and I used it to interview for a job at Global Foundries in New York. So that opportunity moved me back to New York, which is where closer to my family and closer to my husband's family. And I worked there for a couple of years, which it was good. It was implementing quality systems at Fab 8 because it was a greenfield startup. And then I saw the job listing at Crystal IS to develop quality systems from the ground up, which I had always wanted to do. So I took that job. And that was good. That Shalaja was with me on that journey to develop quality systems. And then after they were all done, I got moved to be the director of product engineering. So I've been doing that job for a while now, in terms of like new product introduction and product characterization. So Shalaja and I work very closely together at Crystal IS.
So I guess I'll start by thanking Iman for inviting me. I feel like a little bit of an imposter here because I told Iman when I agreed to do this that I considered myself more tech adjacent than like pure tech. So I'm hoping that I'll bring more of a humanities, soft skills approach to this conversation because I do not have the credentials that these other panelists do. So how did I get to where I am? So I started being interested in digital humanities when I was an undergrad at Mount Holyoke. And so I first got this TA job in the library with a faculty member doing digital humanities stuff. And that's really when I kind of saw how awesome librarians were. I didn't really know until then, like what academic librarians did. I'd always used public libraries, but I was like, wow, this is like really cool. They're doing really cool things. How do I be a part of this? So after I graduated, I got a job at a library and I just kind of worked my way up through libraries. I went to grad school and got my master's in library science. And what I kept finding when I was working in a variety of different libraries was that users are very wary of technology, and it doesn't matter how old they are or what background. Some of us really get exposed early and have access to technology and it becomes part of our lives, and some of us don't. And so what I really found was that I was being able to support and provide a role for people who were like scared and didn't know how to use it. And so I kind of created this niche for myself in these different libraries that I worked at where I would just do classes or volunteer, help people one-on-one. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of kind of turning the tides in people's relationship to what technology could do for them. And I'm using this word and we're like, what do we mean by this? But it can even be something as simple as like using Word to create a resume to get a job. Like we don't necessarily think of that as technology when we're talking about like semiconductors and hard materials and electronics, but like these are little things that we take for granted that other people don't know how to do and don't have access to, and it inhibits them from moving forward in the way they want to in their lives. So I kind of see myself as this role of this intermediary of helping people, because then once they can develop those skills, they can move on and then move up and go on with their lives. At Simon's Rock specifically, I help faculty and students with their technology needs. So that's like learning management systems and coursework and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's kind of where I see myself as this intermediary role. And I hope that I'm able to speak to some more things later on, but I'm a little insecure about my position in this panel. So hopefully you'll all indulge me, but thank you, Aman.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so happy we have people from different backgrounds here, and the intersection of soft skills and technology is definitely very important. The next question is, what kind of tech do you use to do your job from both a hardware and software perspective?
I think this is a good question for Kelly Ann because I don't actually use any.
I think so too. I was like, other than Microsoft product, I don't.
Calculator?
I love these answers though. This is amazing. I mean, I guess I'll start. Maybe this will like jog your mind. So yeah, so Microsoft Office, Google Suite. Google Suite is definitely coming up. When I started, people weren't really using it as much in education, but now it's kind of become pervasive. Learning management systems. So that could be Google Classroom, that could be Moodle, that could be Blackboard, depending on the institution. Circulation systems. So databases that run books that come in and out of the library and keeps track of who has them and when they're due. We have a person who like manages that more, but I definitely handle dealing with the people and managing it from that perspective. What else did I think of? So hardware, so this came up a lot in public libraries. So anyone would come in with any device at any time and want help with it. So I'd have to quickly like troubleshoot, like how do I help someone with an iPad versus a Kindle versus a like generic tablet, cell phones of all makes and models. I definitely had to learn on my feet to be comfortable and have a confident presence that I could know what I was doing while I was secretly like Googling what I was doing and then helping the user. And you know, I wasn't secretive about that, but that's what was happening. So I really had to, it was a lot of trial by fire, helping people with different devices like as the need arises. And then I guess just being versatile in Macs and PCs. I would love to learn Linux at some point. I don't know that, but that's kind of a career goal that I have. So maybe your club, Iman, could help me. Yeah, so it's like all over the place, but I consider it kind of like the more basic level. I know there's a whole other level up here that I'm not versed in.
I guess I do. I mean, I do. I'm pretty sure, same as Amy would say, that we use a lot of the Microsoft. We were migrated to 100% Microsoft. So everything that we use here at our company is full. We call it Microsoft 360. But in terms of for example, for the database, so we have a couple of people who are well versed in SQL scripting. So I have zero idea. We manage. I think both Amy and I manage engineers who know how to write the SQL scripting, and the other one that we also use for our analysis, statistical analysis. We call it like it's a SAS programming, and it is jump scripting, and which is a great, very powerful statistical tools. And apart from that, I guess I don't know. We use all the crystals that we grow. Of course, if you consider that as a hardware, I don't know, like the entire apparatus that we grow our crystals in, they are high pressure, high temperature. Temperature, when we are talking about, it's like 2,200 degrees Celsius temperatures, and pressures. This is above atmosphere pressures. I only know in metric unit, it's like about atmosphere, about 1,000 millibars. I guess it is 720 torrs. I think it's I always get mixed up with my. I only know metric because I learned metric growing up. So we use those kinds of equipments to grow the crystals, and then after that, the entire process they use technical. What do you mean? The like we have to take those crystals, slice them, polish them, and then you make diodes on them. So those are, I guess, some of the hardwares we deal with this every day-to-day life at Crystallize.
When you say grow crystals, can you tell us what that means?
So growing crystals. So it's very similar. I mean, if I have to say, you know how you grow plants?
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. Very.
Okay.
That's why
Do you
growing
like water them?
Oh, you can say that. But what we do is, so you start with a seed. Literally, we call it a seed. But a seed is of, say you want to grow, say you want to grow apple. So you grow it, you start with an apple seed. But you want to grow a Macintosh, like a Fuji apple, then you take Fuji apple seed, right? Same way with the semiconductor, you do exactly the same thing. You take the seed of the known property and you use that. And then you pretty much, depending upon the type of crystal growth, in our case, aluminum nitride, it's a sublimation. Sublimation means it goes from straight from solid to gas. So it doesn't go through the phase transition is not through liquid, at least at the temperatures we are trying. So we sublime the material onto the seed, and the seed is like a memory. It has layers. So then it individually atoms go attach, and then they grow layer by layer. So that's how we grow a crystal. So it's grown at a very high temperature. So your water, sort of, yes, we use water because it's 2,200 degrees Celsius. We got to get rid of those heat. So we use cooling water to get rid of the
So
heat.
cool. Thank you.
So yeah, I guess we have a lot of control systems at work. And another one that we had was the quality management system. So when we built our initial quality system, we got some software to manage our documentation control and other quality systems. And then the company switched over to a different software to manage that. And then the other sort of technology I should mention is we built a microbiological lab last year, or maybe like 2 years ago. So we now have an on-site microbiologist that actually test the disinfection capability of our products. And so that's, for me, it's completely different because I have a mechanical background, but the whole like life sciences thing, it's just interesting. I think that, at Crystal IS, we have all types of people. We've got microbiologists, we've got material scientists, chemists, physicists, mechanical engineers, all kinds of different people working there on different aspects of the technology to get things to work together, which makes it kind of fun.
All right, thank you, everyone. The next question is, what are your biggest hurdles being a woman in your field?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that one. It's very hard question. I wish sometimes that I'll be honest. Yeah, I'm being like totally open and honest. I wish sometimes that I could step out and be a man to see if that was truly I am feeling as if this is I'm being subjected to. I mean, is it a misogyny, or is it truly I am overly sensitive? There's that fine balance. So the part, I think, most of the time, the one part that I think I have had to overcome is the communication style. My communication style and voice being heard. So mostly communication style. I think when we go into the management position, women especially, of course, we are in the management position because we are going to be assertive. That can be construed differently if you're a woman versus a man. I've always been called very aggressive. I'm not sure if that is a label it is given to a man or not. And the other part is our voices sometimes feels like, even though we would have said the same thing, probably our voice is not heard, and it appears that the communication style is questioned rather than the communication, what we are trying to communicate, our words. So those are the two areas I think I have felt. Other than that, I've been lucky enough to not feel any sort of a burden or a discrimination.
So, yeah, when I was young, just being young and female was tough. And I got called a lot of names just for being female. And, it was either you're a ditz or a bitch, basically. If you're too aggressive, you're a bitch. And if you're too nice, you're a ditz. And my boss, who was a lesbian, drew me aside and was like, listen, Amy, everyone's acting like you're a ditz. And then like 6 months later, it was like, now you're acting like a bitch. Like, I don't know how she managed it. It wasn't easy for her either, but, I didn't know what to do. But definitely I had the trouble there. People don't listen a lot of times. You don't know if it's like your voice is too high and they just can't hear high voices or what. I'd say it's better now. There's a lot less bullying. There's a lot less harassment than there was when I started out. It was pretty blatant. My best friend actually quit a job because she was being sexually harassed so badly on the manufacturing line. So it's much better nowadays, but still it's like microaggressions now. Like when you're in a meeting, people interrupt, and like you can never get your voice back. It's gone. Like it takes 10 minutes just to get a pause in the conversation. I've also had people, you say something, some great thought, and everyone ignores it. And then a man in the room says the same thing, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And you're like, I just said that, and it's not, that is not just me. I know it's not, because people have studied this, the behavioral psychologists, they've gone out and they've studied it and they've documented that this actually does happen. So I would say it's definitely gotten better over the years, but I think those are still some of the barriers that women face for sure.
So much of what you both just said resonates with me. My perspective is a little different because my field is very much female dominated. So I am not the minority in my field. Librarianship is 70% female identifying and 30% male. What's interesting though is that the leadership in our field is 70% male and 30% female. So there's a direct inverse between the majority and who's actually running the show. And so Amy, what you were saying about you saying something, then a male saying it, thinking it's the greatest idea ever, that has happened my entire career, because I haven't been in the position of being the director and having the say or the final authority or anything like that. In terms of harassment, this happens so frequently in public libraries, especially younger. So I've been in my career for about a decade now, but I'm still younger and younger looking. And I know that many of my colleagues and peers have experienced this. Being a female in the service industry, and public librarianship is very much the service industry, you face harassment all day long. And depending on the leadership of your library, the director or the board of directors, they take it more or less seriously. So I've left jobs because of that. It's different in academia. What I faced in academia is, as a younger looking person, I'm mistaken as a student. And I teach, and I've had students who are older than me, not at Simon's Rock, thankfully, but in other jobs. So that's another level, ageism, that I faced a lot, where they're like, oh, you're younger, what could you possibly know? And there's this weird thing that happens when you're in the power position because you're the teacher, but then they're like 30 years older than you and trying to like not take you seriously, even though you're the professional. So while my experience is different because I'm not the minority, so much of what you're both saying, I think, is pervasive in many, many fields. And while there is progress, there is still a long way to go.
Thank you so much, everyone. The next question is kind of related. Do you notice a lack of women in technology? And if so, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess after some point, I mean, in engineering, I started as engineering. I think well, in India, it was slightly different. I come from India. I think we had like 6, in my class, I had 6 women versus 30 men. And then, of course, when I got into jobs, I started noticing less and less women. I guess at Crystal IS, I was the first one, and then Amy joined. So yeah, even in I think Amy and I are the only two like in technology field, if you will, at Crystal IS, are the only two female in the technical path. Um, I think one could be is I this is I think a question to HR more than us. But I have gone out of my way to ask for resumes of female when I had a position. But unfortunately, we don't get too many. I at least did not get too many qualified resumes, which either is statement towards that there aren't many female graduating, or they are in our area there aren't any, because meaning that in this field that I am in there aren't any. That's the only thing I can comment on, at least pertaining to Crystal IS. And I know with regards to HR, there are other things they are trying to do, which I think Amy can talk more about because she has more experience in working in other companies where they are trying to not have the name of the person, because there has been data indicating that if as soon as the people read the name of the person on the resume, and you can easily tell if it's that person is either a female or a colored person, they're automatically discriminated. So I know there are some things HR is trying to do, but it puzzles me still that why women do not enter technical field. It is I struggle with that. Yes.
Yeah, it gets lonely. I can't figure it out. We had about 20% female in my graduating class, but there's only like 10% women working at Crystal IS. And like Shailesh just said, only two of us are technical. So I don't really know why. I think at Global Foundries, they had a better ratio, but it's a really big company, so it's hard to tell. When there's 3,000 people on site, it's hard to tell like how many are women. It's just, there's a lot more women up there. And I don't know what the cause is. I don't know if it's like what Kellyanne said, that, the decision makers are mostly men, and maybe they have hidden biases. I know that everybody has hidden biases. There's a test you can take, right, at Harvard. And I think everyone should take it, but people aren't really willing to take it, and they're not really willing to learn about themselves. And they're not really willing to push to interview a diversity candidate. So, I mean, we always ask for the resumes, and we always try to interview at least one or more, diversity candidates for every opening. But I don't think that everybody in the organization tries to do that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard. I don't know where all the women are or where they've gone, because there's certainly still a lot coming out of college. I've seen, I got a pile of resumes when I hired an intern. There was half of them were women. So and that was, I don't know, it was for biomedical or chemical or mechanical or something like that. And I would say almost half the resumes I got were female coming out of college. So I don't know where they all went.
I mean, there is a lack of women, like we know this, but as to why, so my experience was a little different. I went to a women's college where women are encouraged and empowered to do everything. And so there were plenty of women doing it there. And some of my good friends have pursued careers in tech, and they are women and also minorities of other ways. And in their fields now, they're the only women. And it was just such a weird experience coming from a culture, like a little subculture where we were everywhere doing all the things, and then they've made their way up in their career, and they're finding as they get more and more advanced, all the women aren't there anymore. So I don't know why that is. I mean, maybe I do know from working more closely in tech at other jobs, there's still a lot of what I'll call bro culture, which can be really off-putting. And so if women aren't feeling included and welcomed and supported, and that even so far as like intentionally kind of weeded out, then that would do something to make people not want to be part of it anymore. I don't know about like work-life balance is often more of a factor for women if they're thinking about families. So this is a generalization, but so if there aren't work environments that are inclusive or supportive of choices that women want to make in terms of their families, then that might be something that is turning them away from those fields. I don't know. But I do know from male friends who work in tech, they want women's perspectives. They want women in those fields and bringing their perspectives and bringing their voice to the table. What happens when we get to the table maybe is a different situation, but they say that they want us there. So we need to be showing up. But yeah, in terms of how do we get more people there? I don't really know.
Thank you, everyone. The next question is, what advice would you give to a woman considering a career in your industry? And what do you wish you had known?
What advice would I give? For me, I mean, I guess follow your passion. Follow your passion, and you should be more. And let, even though this is very hard, and I struggle with this every day, be intrinsically driven rather than extrinsically, and don't what even for women especially. I know that don't be afraid of your emotions, because sometimes I'm ashamed when my tears come out, but I was like, so what? It's just it is. And some other times I'm like, so what? It is a tear. So don't be afraid of showing your emotions. And if an emotion is what makes you you, then don't be afraid of that. Just, I mean, that's where men are. I mean, there's always something you have to learn from the people who are doing, who are successful, more successful than you, right? They are never afraid to show their emotions. So should the women or people who are diverse. I mean, who are in like who want to explore more in their life. They should, in my mind, that is what I don't think you should look at your weakness, more focus on your strengths and go with that. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. If there's a career industry that's interesting to you, then go after it. Don't let anyone stop you. Be yourself. Don't subscribe to this bitch ditch dichotomy. Just go and find something that interests you, that you'll enjoy, that you'll contribute to, and that you'll benefit from. Because no matter what field you go into, there are going to be stresses. There's going to be difficult people. There's going to be prejudice. Even if you're in a female-dominated field, you're still going to have the same stresses at the end of the day. You're still going to have rough days. You're still going to have this question, did I get that because of something I did, or is it because I'm female? It doesn't matter what field you go into. So you might as well pick the one that, you're passionate about anyway, and just keep trying and, stick together and support each other.
I love getting to go last because I get to hear all of your wonderful words of wisdom. So I agree with all of that. I would also add, not don't be afraid of, but I would encourage you to create opportunities for yourself. So in addition to going into the fields and accepting the jobs, go forth and create opportunities for yourself if you're finding that the job that you have isn't meeting your needs or there's a new skill you want to learn. So for my career path, which has been varied, and again, like I can look back and be like, wow, I ended up where I was meant to end up, like you were saying earlier, and think like, oh, it was all preordained. But like at the time I was like, what am I doing with my life? I've always had the like part-time job, the 3 part-time jobs, the side hustles, the full-time job, but I've always then either volunteered or spoken at conferences or created workshops or worked with people one-on-one. Like there's always these other things that I'm doing, that I'm building my skills or making connections in new places or doing new opportunities that intrigue and excite me. So follow the path, but then also add in other stuff to keep you excited and to expand your skill set and to learn new things. because it'll kind of just help you stay excited and try. It's also a safe way to like try new things and then abandon them if you decide you don't want to go in that direction. So yeah, like create opportunities for yourself. Don't wait for them to be handed to you or the perfect job to show up, because that may never happen. But if you learn early on that you're empowered to create them for yourself, then I think that is how you're going to get more of where you want to go in life. And also more opportunities will come to you, because like it's kind of like this perpetual motion thing. Like when you're doing more, then people see it and they offer you more things. So there's something to that, I think.
And to add one more thing, like that when Kellyanne said that, yeah, I mean, I was lucky to have a good mentor, and he always said that never ever, never ever, even whatever job or whatever task is handed over to you, even though you dislike it, just take it. Just take it. You never know what that opportunity, where that opportunity will lead you to. So, and also the other that important thing, if you can find somebody who is a mentor, who can be your mentor, go and definitely ask that, can you please be my mentor? That is very important so that you can learn from them. This is regardless of women or men. I think everybody should try to find a mentor so you can then learn from them. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, everyone. I totally agree with all of that. So shifting gears a little bit, the next question is, what are you most excited about in the future of technology?
I want Amy to go because we had a cool result.
Okay. Well, actually, first, our technology has the potential to provide clean drinking water for people, which is pretty important, especially with climate change. But it could also impact the trajectory of this pandemic if it's implemented correctly and quickly and broadly enough. So we did a study with Boston University recently on disinfection of SARS-CoV-2. And we found that it takes like 5 or 6 seconds to get 99.9% reduction of the virus using our LEDs. So that was really pretty exciting. And we just hope that, the technology can be adopted into places and applications where it could actually help people get back to business safely. So, we're always learning more and more every day, but we have learned that being in an enclosed space with other people up close with, poor ventilation is a problem. So our LEDs can help that situation, which would enable, mom and pop shops maybe to get back into business more safely and more quickly. So I'm really hoping that, we can deploy that technology. And we do have a couple of customers that are on our website that are implementing the technology into room disinfection. So hopefully that will help as well.
Right. So that, I think that for me, the technology that we are working on, especially the pandemic is new thing, but especially the thing that we all collectively are looking forward is water disinfection, because the water is one source. I mean, one thing that everybody requires, and we know that there are many people in this world that don't get fresh drinking water, as we here in the United States, because our water is chlorinated. We have access to drinking water, whereas a lot of third world countries do not have access to that drinking water. So I am really excited about our technology, the LEDs killing the viruses and the bacteria and making the water drinkable. That's what I'm most excited about.
Those are both super exciting things. I'm excited for this. I am excited about technology's ability to create more inclusive spaces for people. So I'm excited. So that I know this kind of goes into your next question, Aman, but I'm excited that technology is a means through which more people can participate in activities. And so we've seen that now through the pandemic. I'm excited about the ways that technology is helping people with mobility issues. So every day we're seeing advancements in orthotics and prosthetics and the biomedical industry and technology's relation to that. that are making people more able to participate in the lives in the way that they want to. I'm excited to see more women and minorities of all kinds and people with different accessibility challenges enter the technology field, because so often when we see innovation in technology, it's because someone with the need saw it and then they created the thing to solve the need. And so as there's more perspective and voices that are saying we want these things, then the technology is created to solve the issues. So I'm just excited about technology kind of like equalizing as an equalizing force and leveling the playing field for people with accessibility needs. And then also kind of leveling up how people can participate in their lives in the way that they want to.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. All that's super cool. And then, yeah, so as Kellyanne said, the next question is going to be, how has the pandemic impacted your job and what do you predict for companies in the future?
I don't know if all of you felt the same. Working from home was something I used to always think that I would enjoy a lot. I'll be honest, no. I do like going to work. I do like to see, talk to people and actually walk in the factory and the manufacturing. And to some extent, the pandemic, I feel like, has almost quadrupled the workload. And I agree with what Kenny Ann said earlier, that the one thing that is good about technology that it has, like, for example, today we are able to do Zoom meeting at 8 p.m. With Bard College. At least I feel like, okay, to some extent, pandemic has allowed us to do that today. But yeah, I feel like the pandemic has actually quadrupled the work significantly. I feel like the inefficiencies has gone up a little bit, because now we call meetings, and then if it is not meetings, then we have at least in a day 100 emails to, and this email goes out to multiple people, so all of them are reading exactly same content. And then on top of that, not to mention, you have these we have Teams. I think it's similar to Google. What do you call Google? What is Google's platform on the Hangouts? So it is like Google Hangout, I guess. So we use Teams, and before it was Skype. So yeah, you get chat on that. So in regards to that, yes, workload has gone up. But on the other hand, the future, because of pandemic, unfortunately, I think somebody was saying that that so you almost feel guilty that an event like this makes you more successful. But however, because of that event, we became more successful. So we don't, so pandemic actually has created great opportunities for Crystal IS. So in that sense, I think it was a boon for us to some extent.
So, yeah, I actually have 4 children. So at the beginning of the pandemic, school was canceled. And I had to work from home and manage the kids in their school, and it was a nightmare. And like, talk about like all these technology platforms. I had like 7 different platforms that like they had to use, and I had no idea how to use any of them. And the kids certainly didn't know how to use them. Yeah, I mean, the oldest one knew how to use Google Classroom, but that was it. And I don't know why the school had, 7. Every teacher had their own platform. Some of them had multiple ones, and it was very, very difficult. It was very stressful to like try and do the job and take care of the kids. And I know a lot of people are dealing with the same thing. A lot of people still don't have, in-person school right now, and a lot of people are back to juggling their work from home and the kids at the same time. So it's very common, a theme, I would say. At least I still have a job, unlike a lot of people. But yeah, that it impacted the job a lot, I would say. But I did, we're up here in, Albany area. The infection rate's quite low, and the schools have reopened in person with pretty extreme safety measures. So that's good. And they seem to be controlling it very well. So now I'm more in the position of, just trying to work from home, like Shailaja just said. I don't get to go in as much as she does. She's director of operations, so she can do what she wants. I got to work from home. But what I find is it is difficult to relate to people and have those conversations. And the technology aspect has also been difficult. At the beginning, the internet was terrible. It's like all your neighbors are all binging Netflix at the same time. Your kids are on school and you're trying to have a conference call. It was very difficult. So I would say we all still have technology issues at home. People are like this morning, I couldn't talk to Shalja because my microphone wouldn't work or something. And, you still, the internet's going in and out and it's pretty spotty at times, but, we're doing the best we can and trying to communicate and stay together as a team and get stuff done. It is a lot more work, I'd say, but at least we're still moving forward. So that's good.
Yeah, so like you both said, obviously this impacted my job a lot. I think in the beginning, we were kind of in so around spring break in the spring, we were kind of in triage mode thinking, okay, we're going to go online. How do we support all these teachers to bring all their classes online? And I was kind of, excited sounds in poor taste, but I have a background in helping people transition their classes online, teaching online. I did my master's in a hybrid program. I know about all the LMSs. So I was like, great, we'll leverage my experience. It's going to be wonderful. And hopefully there's no faculty here, but a lot of them just really weren't interested. They really couldn't wrap their brain around we have to rethink our entire course. We're just putting it online and then it's going to be the same. And then we don't have to think at all anymore about that. And anyone who's taken online classes knows that that's not how it should be. And so over the course of the last 8 months or whatever it's been, I think that we've come a long way as an institution. But there were still a lot of challenges. And Amy, like you were saying with your kids, teachers were scrambling, there was no real plan in place for any of this. And so in a lot of ways, in many institutions, people were just kind of left on their own to figure it out. And so as our library, we did the best we could. We offered workshops, which my boss was saying the other day, it's crazy to think that in March we had brown bag, roundtable lunches in the library in person. It's what a distant, crazy thing to think that in March we were well, come to the library and sit with us. Everyone survived, but wow. But yeah, so it definitely impacted how I supported faculty and what role I saw myself providing within the institution. I'll say though, as the outreach librarian and the person who's responsible for all the programming and events and kind of creating community, that went out the window. So I really had to think about what can I do online from my kitchen that students want to come to, and newsflash, they don't. Everyone's Zoomed out. No one wants to go to anything on Zoom anymore. So now I feel I work in a vacuum and I'm trying to figure out how do I keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on campus, provide these things online. People don't want to be online anymore. So I would say the impact on culture and community is something that technology can't really fix. We have a means by which to come together. So we're doing it now, which is awesome. But it doesn't just solve, it's not just a solution or we just are oh, let's have a Zoom call and everyone's going to come together and be happy. There's so much more intentionality that has to happen to kind of replace the community and the collaboration that happened before the pandemic. And so I think we're still working out as a society what that looks like, what the expectations are. And then one more point I'll make, I didn't think of, so both of you mentioned that there's more work. I wasn't thinking of it that way. One of the challenges I've had is when to be done. I feel now there's this 24 expectation of oh, well, you're just home all the time. So you must obviously be available and working and checking your email. And it's well, no, we still deserve to turn our computers off and put them away and go have lives outside of work. We never signed up for 24/7 jobs. But now somehow this pandemic has created this notion that we're all just available all the time. And that's something that I've struggled with and I'm trying to reclaim my own time and kind of lead by example and show other people we're allowed to have boundaries, we're allowed to say no. That doesn't mean we're not committed, that doesn't mean we don't care, that doesn't mean we're not available. It just means that we respect ourselves enough to enforce some proper boundaries around all of that. So I don't know, that felt rambly. I don't know if there was a clear point there, but it affected a lot. There's a lot there's upheaval, there's change happening. It affected it a lot.
Yeah, if I could just add to your last point, we work for a Japanese company. So, I mean, the good news is we don't have to travel, but the bad news is there's a million like 8 p.m. calls, you know. So it's like, yeah, it just all blurs together at this point. We don't know if we're coming or going or what time or what day it is. So yeah, it's a little bit different, I'd say, than what it was before.
So that was the last question that I had for you guys. So we have one question in the Q&A chat, and also if panelists have questions for each other, you guys can ask. In the Q&A, it says, for Shailaja, what were the limits to solar in your opinion, and in what ways?
At that time, well, that was in 2000 when I started in this my master's program. At that time, the solar efficiency was 15%, which is, it's not like it's gotten any better now. It's only 35% efficiency, which means that the total amount of input, so input is the sunlight, and the output you get out of it is only 15%. And the reason the inefficiency was the material that was being used, which is silicon. Silicon, the amount of sunlight, which you call the photons, the photon it absorbs, and to convert that into light, because of the limitations of its band gap, and because it's an indirect band gap, also was the one of the limiting factors and leading to inefficiencies. So, I was also interested in power electronics to some extent. And that's the reason I was saying that I switched over to compound semiconductors, especially silicon carbide, where silicon carbide tends to have lower a lower wastage, if you will, in the power in terms of power output. That's the reason I was more interested to go from that, like getting to the root of the problem rather than going after making more solar panels. That's what I meant by that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and we have another question for Amy. What responsibilities does your current position entail? Do you like it? How does it compare to your most liked job?
I like my job a lot, actually. I've been with the company 7 years now. And in my current role, my role kind of keeps changing because of our relationship to our parent company in Japan, or our sister company. So at the beginning, I was responsible for new product development of LEDs, and I worked with our Japanese cohorts on the product roadmap and the development of each generation of products coming out. But now they've decided to take that part over, so they'll be driving the product roadmap. But I also got to build a microbiology lab. So now I'm responsible for the disinfection product characterization. I still do some new product development out of Crystal IS and Green Island, which I'm working on now, but we also do biological characterization. So we measure, how long does it take to disinfect E. coli? How does our water disinfection reactor disinfect, Pseudomonas at different flow rates and things like that. And as I mentioned, we did a study on SARS-CoV-2 recently. So, I mean, I think it's a really fun job because I'm not a biologist. I started out as a mechanical engineer in electronics manufacturing, and I went to the semiconductor industry. I went to software for a little while. So now I'm, then I was in the LED side, but now I'm in the biology, more the biology side. So it's like every day, it's like you learn something new every day in this job. And, I really like the people that we work with too. So we do, it's a very exciting job. It's a lot of fun.
And we have another question for Kelly Ann. What exactly is digital humanities?
Okay, so I wish I had a really good succinct answer for this. So it's basically the intersection of humanities and technology. So an example of a project that we were working on, Melusina Trench is this poet from the 18th century. And so we were using her poems and we were putting them online, but we're using XML markup language to hyperlink different words from the poem so that it would send you out to like contextual information about it. So it was like this combination of like literary analysis where we're doing the close reading of the poem, and then like cultural studies or historical studies where we're bringing in information about her as a person. So she actually was one of the first female sci-fi writers, but a lot of people don't know about her. So her work like predates Frankenstein and all of that. So she's important, but not a lot of people know about her. So we would hyperlink out to like information about her. So we would create the content, the historical analysis or biographical information about her. And then we would use XML to mark up the page and then design it so it like looked pretty and was interactive. So basically it's taking humanities projects, whether it's art or music or literature, or whatever, and then intersecting with technology. So making it available online in a way that is interactive and fun. There's lots of kind of like, my friend just sent me this one the other day. It's like this 3D immersive Van Gogh painting experience where it's on your phone and you like turn it and you're like, it goes from one painting of his to another and it feels like you're in a paint, like in his paintings. Like that would be an example of digital humanities. So it's basically using technology to enhance the arts and like bring them through technology to people, if that makes sense. It's kind of, that's like a, I don't know if that works.
Thank you. And we have another question. Have you ever received discrimination / harassment from your female colleagues in any way?
I have, this is, well, previous company, I was the only female. And here I have, but I've not, no, I've not had any, no, I've been lucky, I guess, but uh, nor have I had felt any discrimination from men either. So that's why I'm like, in that sense, I guess in that I've been, but I will say one thing though, that I mean, I was interning, not, it was a sort of an interning. So I finished my master's and I was going to go to my PhD. At that time, my committee member, he had a startup company and I worked there. And I I felt, and as a, I felt like I myself was competing more with the women than with men. And I realized at that point, I realized, what am I doing? I'm like, I'm setting my, like, I was like, I felt like I had to compete with women more than men. And I'm not proud of that moment. And that's the first time I acknowledged that that I as a woman try to compete with a fellow women rather than working with them. And that was a good learning in my very early on in my career, that I need to recognize that if ever that happens with me, or if I ever do it to anybody who reports to me. So that's the only one I have had.
So I have not. I have definitely experienced harassment and discrimination by men. And one time I went to lunch with my friend and she picked up a stalker. So the guy read her name badge and then, you know, emailed her and was like, I can see you through the window working at your desk and stuff like that. That's great. But I haven't experienced any by females. However, I said that my best friend quit her job on the manufacturing floor because the harassment was severe and that her sexual harassment was by a bunch of women, actually.
So I have experienced this. And for a while, it took me kind of a long time to understand what was happening. And now that I'm several years out and have worked in different work environments, I have a working theory. I don't know how much of it is projection. I think there is something about the fact that our profession is majority female, but mostly led by men. And so I recognize that the situation that I was in was a toxic work environment through and through, and I left it for many reasons that were all toxic. But what was happening there, so I was a newbie, fresh out of college, very little library experience. And I think what it came down to was partly jealousy, because I was seen as like the pet, which is gross, and I didn't really know what to do with that. And what I realized later as the director was actually actively cultivating resentment amongst the female staff, pitting us against each other, because he needed to like do that to have his own sense of power, because he was an insecure, weak man. So like, I was a pawn in this game that I only later realized once basically things went down and then we did start communicating. We were all pawns playing out this role because he was actively creating this toxic work environment where we were all pitting ourselves against each other. And I was really new and young in my career. So I was like, of course I'm gonna like do what the director tells me and not listen to them because he's my boss and he's in charge. And like Shaileja, I don't know how did I pronounce your name right? How's your name pronounced?
Shaileja.
Okay, so like Shaileja said, later it was this eye-opening moment where I was like, if I'm ever in this situation again, I will not immediately side with the director just because he's my boss. I will bring my own eyes and ears to the situation. I will cultivate my own relationship with each person, whether they're my superior or reports to me or whatever, and act as my own agent and not fall prey to being the pawn or being manipulated or kind of falling into these like office politics that really frequently happen. So it's really unfortunate, but actually female on female antagonism and Iman, I forget the word that you use. I guess harassment is really common in libraries. And it's really disappointing and disgusting to me, especially as someone who's a product of a women's college who is very much trained in the spirit of supporting each other and lifting each other up. It really frustrates me and I want us to do better as a field. And so all I would say is when you experience it, if you experience it, try to like step outside yourself a little bit and see what's actually maybe going on and that it's probably bigger than you, and then be empowered to act accordingly and respond in like the way that will be the most productive and beneficial and not just like fall victim to the hurt feeling of it. Cause it's easy to feel hurt and want to like lash out and be like petty, but like you have to like realize that there are bigger forces at play and kind of be the bigger person sometimes, which is hard, but necessary. And I will say the more experienced and older and more established I've gotten in my career, the easier it's been. So.
Thank you everyone for sharing that. So do panelists have questions for each other or, we have one question in the chat. What changes would you like to see in the next 5-10 years and what's your wish list?
Wish list for what?
I think it's like, I think it's changes like you want to see like in the industry or in the workplace.
I just want to see more women and you know, non-binary people and people of color, you know, more diversity. I'd like to see a lot more diversity. Mm-hmm. And more diversity in positions of power and management too.
And inclusive. Yeah. I've voted for inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we, I mean, it was like, even women, I think there was, it was a great opportunity I had. Unfortunately, I had to cut short the trip. I went to Kenya this March to work with a co-op that was making a sanitary napkin for girl child, because most of the girls drop out of school once they get their period. And the thing that I was looking for is more men, not just don't get women, get men, because they are, if it is true that they are in the position to hire more women, then get men involved in it. Actually, that is one of the things I think we also got we get some trainings at Chrysalis. In one of the trainings that is said, like, let men, the managers, they have to take the initiation. And if you just make it all women program, you're actually excluding men, and then you're doing the same thing what is being done to you. So I promote inclusion.
Yeah, and I would say inclusion in practice, not in words, because they're two very different things. I guess this is a great opportunity. So I felt like the question about how the pandemic affected my job, I got real negative. I will say a positive is that working from home has been a challenge for me because I really miss the students and I really miss the community. And it's a lot of my job. It's very hard to do, or I'm not doing it at all right now. Other people we've had to shift responsibilities. But a good part of it, I will say, is that it has shown society that it's possible. So within the disability community, people have been asking for this type of accessibility for years, and it is possible. But we still have this notion in America that if you don't see someone actively working and they don't have that direct oversight from their boss, they must be slacking off. And so I'm really hopeful that this has shown society and the world that there are alternate ways to participate in work, and it can look different for different people, and it doesn't have to be a one size fits all kind of situation. And hopefully this will empower people of different means to join the workforce in a way that they weren't able to do before, or pursue opportunities because technology is facilitating it in ways that they weren't able to before. So I'm really excited and optimistic about that, in the sense that it has made things more accessible, it's leveled the playing field, and that we're seeing a shift in our culture about what participation and access looks like. And that goes to the inclusion thing. Like, we're actually practicing inclusion. And I know it was a default and people didn't realize, and we had to do it because of the pandemic, but I'm hoping we can move forward and actually intentionally create opportunities and spaces that allow types of participation and inclusion that are now we're doing. I just really hope it doesn't revert back, because I think that we've made progress and I think that we still can go forward on this path. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So if panelists want to ask, oh, I have another question in the chat. Who's your mentor?
I don't think you can have, I don't think you can have one mentor. I'll say that. Think for a bit, you should have, at least for women, I think you should have both men and women as mentors. Unfortunately, I know Amy and I have talked about this, that at Chrysalis, we don't have good mentors, so we go out. But as I could say this Japanese company, we have the luxury, if you will, to go outside of our Crystallized company and go to our sister company. So I have a mentor who is who was a president of a big company in US, and I learned quite a bit from him. Unfortunately, now he's gotten busy with the pandemic, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him for several months. But at any given opportunity, if you find someone whose path or whose career path you want to mimic, or you think is looks interesting, ask that person. Go ahead and ask that person, and don't be afraid of asking that person. That's my I don't know, advice, I guess.
I'm between mentors right now. But the question said, who is your life mentor? And so, of course, I'd have to say my mother is probably my life mentor, in terms of, you know, she's been through a lot. She was a surgical nurse, so she had to deal with a lot of harassment and bullying on behalf of the surgeons, and a little bit of violence as well. Back in the day, it was pretty bad. So she's been through everything, and she kind of knows what to do and how to handle it. So she's a pretty good life mentor, I'd say.
So one of my former directors is kind of my career mentor, and actually in my head, she's solidly my mentor. And now I'm wondering if I've ever told her that. She might not know that I think of her that way. But I worked for her for several years, and then I moved on because I had other opportunities, but I just stayed in touch with her because I respected her leadership style. She gave me so many opportunities. She gave me free reign. so much of how I see myself as a librarian and the role that I fill within an institution is due to her leadership and her encouragement. And so I would say that if you're working with someone and you leave, or, you know, when you leave Simon's Rock, if there's anyone that you're working with now, stay in touch with people. Like, it's easy to kind of go into these different chapters of our life and lose touch, but like, stay in touch with the people that really resonate with you, because they do want to know how you're doing, and they are excited about your successes, and you can keep learning from them and keep presenting them with challenges that you're facing, even though you're in a new environment, and they want to help you. So I know that I've been greatly helped by staying in touch with one of my former directors. And now I need to go tell her she's my mentor, because she might want to know that.
Yeah, thank you. You guys can ask each other questions if you guys have questions for each other. I have a question. So a lot of students here that are attending are undergrads, and a lot of us are thinking about, well, what will happen after undergrad, and one of those is grad school. So I was just wondering, like, what factors did you take into account when considering whether or not to go to grad school, and why did you ultimately decide to go?
I have a really good answer for this. It's short and sweet. So someone told me when I was an undergrad, so because of the school I went to, everyone was kind of like jostling for which fancy thing they were going to do after they graduated. And I moved home because I didn't have any prospects or money. And I was really ashamed about it. But it's fine. It all worked out. What someone told me was, don't go to grad school until you know that it's the thing you need to get to the next level. So many people I know went because they didn't know what else to do with themselves, or they didn't know, or they thought they should, or whatever. And what I got from it was like, go when you know that it's what you need for the next thing. And so I moved home, I started working in libraries. And within the first 3 months in a public library, I was like, I need my master's in library science if I want to move up. And that's when I knew that I needed to go get my master's in library science. So I think we take it for granted at a liberal arts college that you'll just go on and become go into academia and advance, and it'll just be this given thing. But I think really there are so many opportunities out there and things, and it's a lot of money and it's a lot of time, and a lot of people are burnt out after undergrad. So taking a break is totally fine. But like, you don't have to go until you know what it is you want to do, and you know that it's going to get you to the next thing, I think, is the advice that I would want everyone to know.
So I took a little different path. I got a job because I wanted to, have the money and be self-sufficient. But the company they have tuition reimbursement. So after a year or so, I started doing my master's part-time, which was really rough. Then I was really burnt out, but it took me a while too. It took me like 3 years or something like that to get my Master of Science. But then when I went back and got my MBA, I did that full time, and that, I don't know why. I guess that was what you said, Kellyanne, that I felt like to get to the next level of my career, I thought an MBA would help a lot more. So I did do that full time, and that was worthwhile. It was a really good experience.
But one thing I'll say is that the education, at least the people who report to me, and also people who are pursuing, I tell them that the education is a foot in the door usually, and it's not necessarily that what you learn, every single thing you apply, but what you need to take away from your education is how to think for yourself, how to be. So I completely agree with Kalyan and Amy here, is that don't follow a tried and it's always good to follow a tried and tested path if you think that is the best, because why waste your energy on something? But you can carve out your own path if you choose. In my case, I'll be honest, I never thought I'll get a PhD. Never. I even tell my boyfriend now, I think some of you know my boyfriend is, I tell him that my main ambition, if you will, was to get married and have kids. And at some point, that's because my mother, she had to get out of the house and work for us because my father didn't have a job. So I was like, yeah, I'm not having my mother's life anymore. That's the reason I didn't want that life. But at some point, I decided, well, I need to get master's if I need to pursue a career or learn more about a certain thing I got interested in. It just happened. It's not like I suddenly, after my undergrad, thought, yep, I'm going to be interested in this. I'll go after this. No, it did not. I'll be honest, it did not happen to me. So yeah, follow a path that you know to think for yourself now, because after your undergrad, so think for yourself what you are passionate about, and take your time. Seriously, after this, you have plenty of years to work. You'll be regretting why you didn't take your time. I regret why I didn't take time off. I really regret. Please take your time now.
Yeah, I'm not sure my MS did anything for me. Actually, I wish I had thought about it a little more.
I just want to reiterate the time thing. I think especially at an early college, like you guys already got off the treadmill, you're already on your own path. Like if anything, this just buys you more time to just figure it out and do what you want and try different things. And I see so many students get so hung up on like, well, I have to do this thing and I have to get a PhD now because it's the next thing and we're all just expected to do it. And that is all internalized pressure that I know comes from being at a fancy liberal arts college. So it feels external, but like, it's not, no one's judging you for your life path. Honestly, just make it what you want it to be because it's yours. And I think that the three of us have illustrated too that we all took time off and we all took different paths and we're all happy where we are. So it all works out.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Do you guys have questions to ask each other?
Do you have a famous boyfriend we should know about?
If not, that's okay. Sorry.
Huh?
Do you have a famous boyfriend we should
No,
Oh.
it's a Ty Young Taft.
Wait, oh, okay. I was like, wait, I don't know who your boyfriend is. That's so funny. Okay.
Yeah.
He's famous.
Well,
Thank you, everyone. So this concludes the panel. I personally feel very empowered and inspired when I hear like stories such as, oh, sorry, I don't, my video is really lagging.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, Iman.
Sorry, I like it's really lagging, so like I can't see anyone's faces. Okay, it's fine. Yeah, so I personally feel really empowered and inspired when I hear stories like yours and people talk about like their interests and their achievements and their life paths, and talking about hardships they've endured and resilience. Resilience is like the topic for today's symposium day at Simon's Rock. We have like a series of workshops, and this is one of them. So yeah, thank you so much for being panelists today, and thank you everyone for attending. And if there's anything else, let me know. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Iman, for having you. And I was
you.
meeting you, Kellyanne. I hope we can keep in touch.
Yeah, this is fun. I learned so much from you guys. I'm so inspired.
Yeah, me too. I learned a lot. Like I also want to learn Linux. That's been as in my grad school, I uninstalled my Microsoft and destroyed the laptop.
Yeah.
So after that, I gave up. So
yeah.
I want to redo that. Yes, me too. Hi, it was nice.
Can I call you when I have trouble? Zoom?
You can. I don't know if I'll be able to help you, but I can Google it. That's my secret weapon. Once I learned that IT guys just Google it, I was like, I can do that. That was the game changer in my career, honestly.
Yeah.
So if you needed a secret pro tip, that's it. But also ask your librarians. Don't Google everything. Thank you, Aman. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Aman. Good luck, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Yeah,
don't take too, again, no pressure, okay? Take your time.
Find your passion.
Yes.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.